Diamond B Sports presents the American Sports Cavalcade. A panorama of speed, color, drama, and excitement. The American Sports Cavalcade.
Nashville, Tennessee. Its image to the world is Country Music USA. And certainly the tourists are not disappointed. Music Row, Opryland, all the glitter is here. But to Nashvillians, it's far more. The state capital of Tennessee, home of Vanderbilt University, and a city that is exploding in industry and technology. It's also stock car country. And that's why today we come to you from the Nashville Motor Raceway on the grounds of the Tennessee State Fair. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans, and today we bring you the continuing coverage of the Stock Car Connection. Now you may recall our telecast from Montreal and Cincinnati. The Stock Car Connection brings together drivers from 3 regional sanctioning bodies: the American Speed Association in the Midwest, the American Canadian Tour drivers from the Northeast, and from down south, the All Pro organization. Well, today you can add some of the leading NASCAR stars. After all, we're down in southern stock car country. Darrell Waltrip is here, Bobby Allison, Davey Allison, Rusty Wallace, a whole bunch of them take on the Stock Car Connection stars like Butch Miller and Ted Musgrave, Dick Trickle, a lot of their top stars. In fact, all of their top stars are here as well. The format is interesting. Today we bring you twin qualifiers. Now there's a lot of money and a lot of points at stake, but more importantly, their qualifying position for next weekend's Miller All-American 400. These 2 qualifiers will set the grid for that very rich race, which we will bring you right here. Now for more on this racetrack and the history behind it, here's my buddy Brock Yates.
Steve, I'll tell you what, you talk about tradition, this racetrack probably ought to be on the National Historic Registry. Boy, all kinds of history here. In fact, they've been racing here for over 100 years. First 70, of course, were the horses. In the 1950s, the stock cars took over. They cut the racetrack down from a mile to a 5/8. Had 2 different kinds of banking here. At one point it was 36 degrees. Now it's down to about 18, but the competition as stiff as ever. So all kinds of tradition in this place. Highly competitive racetrack and very, very difficult.
And on the pole for the first of the qualifying races is the number 2 Ford Thunderbird of Mark Martin out of Batesville, Arkansas. Martin, a 4-time ASA veteran who's also been on the NASCAR circuit the last several years.
Starting beside him on the outside of the front row out of Detroit, Michigan, Harold Fair, who's a consistent runner in ASA, has finished in the top 10 in the point standings for the last 6 years in a row. Starting right behind Mark Martin in the inside of row number 2, Bobby Dowder from Franklin, Wisconsin, yet another ASA veteran and one of the strong runners in a brand new Ford Thunderbird.
Outside of row number 2 is NASCAR legend Darrell Waltrip in a car far different than he's used to driving. Earlier, Brock asked Darrell what adjustments he has to make as a driver in this kind of machine.
I'll give you a for instance. We raced a race over in Georgia a few weeks ago where in one segment of the race I drove my Busch Grand National car, my late model sportsman car. Got out of that car, run it 200 laps, got out of that car, which those cars, as you know, are very similar to a Winston Cup car. Got out of that car and got into this Camaro, and fortunately it was a 200-lap race because it took me 150 laps to get used to driving the Camaro, even though I'd been in and out of both of them that same weekend. The cars are totally different. They have a totally different feel. This car has rack and pinion steering. It's got coil-over shocks and springs. It's a little lighter. It takes a special kind of a finesse almost to drive this thing. A sportsman car or a Winston Cup car, you manhandle those. These cars, I'd say, probably have the more of the feel of a Indy car or an open cockpit type of car, single-seater, because they're so responsive, the quick steering and the short wheelbase. This car's a 101-inch wheelbase, and the percentages are kind of weird on it. It's real heavy on the rear and a little heavy on the left, and it kind of has a tendency to roll around a little bit. So it just takes a little while to acclimate yourself to this kind of a race car.
And Darrell today in his home track as he lives in nearby Franklin, Tennessee.
And every stock car racing fan in the country will recognize this famed number 99 being driven by this man, Dick Trickle, the winningest short track driver in the history of the sport.
Finishing touches going on the 99 car of Dick Trickle before the start of a heat race. And Dick, you know, you've run some NASCAR with the Waltrips and the Allisons, and they beat up on you pretty good, but now you got them where you want them. Your kind of racing.
Well, they got good equipment to run with us, but we do it every day, and to them it's their secondary program, and their races, they want to beat us as bad as they want to beat one of the competitors that wins the Cup Series, and they're really trying hard. And when we do it every day, we got a slight advantage on them, but I expect heavy competition out of them. But the guys that have to normally beat will be still the same ones I've had to beat.
And Dick ready to go inside the race car, getting set, as right behind him will start Davey Allison, the son of Bobby, one of the great young drivers on the NASCAR circuit, here in a brand new race car. Earlier, Steve talked with him.
Davey Allison has accumulated quite a scrapbook this year on super speedways, but Davey, this is a totally different animal. This car, it's lighter, it has a more adjustable chassis. What do you have to remind yourself of when you get in this car?
Well, these cars are a lot more critical to drive than the Winston Cup stock cars are. You can be a little more aggressive with them than you can these all-pro style cars or stock car connection style cars. And if you're not real careful, you can spin one of these things out in a hurry.
Don't count on it, though, Steve. This young man is really poised behind the wheel.
Well, outside of row number 9 is a veteran of 30 years of short-track stock car racing, Beaver Dragon. It's a miracle he's even here, as Brock discussed with him earlier.
Steve, I'm with one of the great veterans of short-track racing, Beaver Dragon, who's now in his 31st year of competition. But this will be a memorable one because he had also one of the great crashes of his career just a couple of weeks ago at Catamount Stadium up in Vermont, one of your home tracks, Beaver.
Yeah, I live 4 miles from the place, Brock, and it was quite an accident. Just one of them things, you know. It was nobody's fault. Me and Dave Dion got together, and I just rode over his tire, and it sent me flipping and on a series of flips, and it just destroyed the car. And luckily, I got out and walked away.
Obviously, we're delighted that you're in good shape. The race car not so healthy, and therefore a new one here. Tell me about it.
Well, this car here is owned by Peter Prescott. And Ricky Craven, of course, this car here is his backup car, and he has a brand new car, and I'm running this one here. They were willing to let me drive this car today because mine's destroyed, and this is a good car, and I need a little time, and it doesn't quite fit me just right because it's a little tight because Ricky's a lot smaller than I am, but we'll manage today. We'll give it our best shot.
This is your first time here at Nashville?
This is the first time I've ever seen Nashville, yes. It's a beautiful place, and I hope we can come back.
Well, we sure hope you do well today. Thanks, Beaver. Best of luck.
Thank you, Brock.
Yes, sir.
Beaver may race another 30 years. You know, the rules here allow that the number 1 and number 2 qualifiers from yesterday do not have to compete today for position. Mike Alexander was the low qualifier. He is elected to sit it out. He's from Franklin, Tennessee. Now, the number 2 qualifier, Butch Miller, will race today, and we'll see him up front in our second qualifying event.
So the Stock Car Connection officials waving this field off here at the Nashville Motor Raceway. 50 laps. The first 11 cars will advance to next week's Miller 400.
And we should point out that in a race of this distance, the yellow flag laps, if we have any, will not count towards that total count of 50. And you know, Brock, the turns 1 and 2 here look a lot like 3 and 4 visually. The drivers tell me, though, that turn number 3 is about the toughest at Nashville because it's very rough right in the center of the racetrack.
That's right, Steve. Also, turn number 2, coming off turn 2, there's a big bump there, and we're going to see some action at those 2 points. So, wild racing about to start. The best of the short track drivers in the country ready to go. 50 laps from here in Nashville. Stick with us. We'll be right back with a start. You are riding in the number 99 Camaro of Dick Trickle as he completes a pace lap here at the Nashville Motor Raceway, the start of 2 50-lap qualifiers here. Now, not only do we have an onboard camera, but we are able to communicate with Dick. Steve, give it a try.
Dick Trickle, this is Steve Evans, Diamond P Sports. Do you have a copy?
Sure, Steve, you're coming in real clear.
If you look to your right, you'll see that 17 car. Would you rather have him back in the pits, or do you look forward to racing with him?
Daryl's a good racer, and I think he adds a lot of clout and prestige to the race, so I like to see him in. Really do.
Hey, best of luck to all of you. Have a safe trip.
So that car that he is referring to is the number 17 Camaro of Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip, his home track here, Steve, he sure knows his way around this half mile.
Well, he better, Brock, because he's in some tough company as they sweep out of turn number 4. They're going to get the green flag, and we have a start of the first of 2 50-lap qualifiers. Thundering down into turn number 1. You're riding with Dick Trickle.
Off turn number 2, that's Bobby Dotter's Thunderbird. Immediately had a trickle, and on his right is the number 17 Orange Camaro of Darrell Waltrip trying to move up. But right now, though, it's Mark Martin out front in the number 2 Thunderbird.
And Dick Trickle's number 99 Camaro, Brock, has settled down into that 5th spot in single file. They come across the stripe. Mark Martin leading that first lap in that brown number 2 Thunderbird. Dick Trickle in the 99 Camaro is in the 5th spot. He's going high. That's Darrell Waltrip just to his left. Trickle trying to pass for 4th position. Let's see if he can make that work. He is going high out of turn number 4.
But it doesn't work. Waltrip sneaks underneath him as they head down the front straightaway. But this is a 2 or 3 groove racetrack, Steve. As more rubber gets laid down, you'll watch more drivers get up high like Trickle does. There he still hangs on the high side, down into turn number 3. Yes, he gets by Waltrip. Let's see, though, as they come down off that turn number 4, can he stick it out and hold on to that 4th position?
Yeah, he is going to do that, Brock. And a lot of the drivers will avoid the rough part of the track we talked about in turn number 3, try to go high or low. Dick Trickle says his Camaro will go right through it like it isn't even there. So that may be an advantage for Dick before this is over.
Right, as we watch Trickle steer through turn number 4 and come down once again onto the front straightaway. That's the number 2 Brown Thunderbird of Mark Martin leading it. Right behind him, another Thunderbird of Bobby Dotter.
And just in front of the 99 car of Dick Trickle we're riding with now, that is Harold Fair. So you've got a pair of Fords up front, the number 2 car of Martin and the red and white machine of Bobby Dotter, the number 79 car, rather. Both Ford Thunderbirds up front.
Here they come down into turn number 1. That is that bright orange number 17 of Darrell Waltrip. You can see him back there in the 5th spot, trying to move back around number 99. And right now, Steve, he is being challenged. Waltrip is being challenged by the number 36 car. Joey Scheer has moved up.
Well, I think right now, Brock, Darrell Waltrip is just trying to get used to this machine. He's not so concerned with position. Certainly doesn't want to finish further back than 11th. He wants to run next week in the Miller All-American 400. But right now, he's trying to get used to that car. It barely got out on the grid because the tech inspectors said the car was too low. They had to raise it a half an inch, and that's tough to do just before a race.
It sure is. As we watch this field streak around this, I said it was a half mile. It's really a little more than a half mile. It's more like a 5/8. It's oddly shaped and sized, about almost 7/10 of a mile, really. As we watch Scheer in that 36 Camaro try to get by the number 17 orange and white car of Darrell Waltrip back there in that 5th spot.
Well, the leader, Mark Martin, is getting around this racetrack at just about 19 seconds, and that sounds a little slow for a half mile. Well, you explained that this really is a half mile in name only.
It sure is. There is Scheer and Waltrip back there in the 5th and 6th spots. Scheer, one of the real veterans, a guy that, again, an ASA star, right here, always among the leaders. There he goes on the outside. That's the way Trickle got by Darrell. Darrell staying down in that low groove, but we'll see whether he can hold him off as Mark Martin goes through some slower traffic, already lapping some of the slower cars.
And there is Joe Scheer. He has passed Waltrip and taken that 5th position and now falls in line just behind Dick Trickle.
So we've got Martin, Dotter, Harold Fair, Dick Trickle, and Joey Scheer, and back in the 6th spot, Darrell Waltrip.
And riding in the 7th position is another number 36 car. That is Kenny Wallace, but they're not hard to tell apart. The 36 car of Scheer is bright orange, and Wallace's is bright yellow.
Well, you can see, Steve, that Mark Martin has broken away a little bit from Bobby Dotter. Now he's moving past one of the slower cars. But that brown number 2 Thunderbird has got about a 5-car length lead over Dotter and seems to be extending it a little bit. But right behind them is that 81 car, Harold Fair, and it looks as if Harold is doing a good job holding off Dick Trickle, moving up and down on the racetrack and kind of blocking Dick as he tries to get by. Notice that Trickle is riding now down in the lower groove, but he can't seem to nip past Harold Fair. It was a real veteran, of course, of this short track wars, and you can be sure that Dick isn't going to get by him without a fight.
Well, we mentioned earlier, Brock, that the top 11 here go to next weekend's 400. Well, they'll get the favored positions, 11th in this race, 12th for the second one today. But you can bet any driver with decent credentials that has problems or is probably going to start next weekend because they will grid 40 cars. They'll be at the back, but they will start.
And of course, as you said earlier, Steve, a man conspicuous by his absence in this race is the pole sitter for next week's 400, Mike Alexander, from right here in Nashville. He was the only guy to qualify under 19 seconds, but he elected to sit it out. Therefore, we've got 11 guys fighting for a grid spot next week. The 12th is already in. That's the same case in the next upcoming 50-lapper, where Butch Miller, who also starts on the front row, is guaranteed of a spot. So we'll have another 11 trying to go. Steve, we got a yellow.
We do, Brock. The first of this race, and the problem is down in turn number 4. The number 21 car of Jeff Neal, that's a red and white machine, and 09 Rick Craven, who is getting underway and back up onto the racetrack. They came together down in turn number 4. Rick Craven is one of Beaver Dragon's teammates. He started in the 11th position. Now, no one intended to pit in this 50-lap race, but if you've got any trouble whatsoever, maybe a tire going down or some suspension that needs adjusting, now would be the time to do it.
Well, I think that Craven is going to make a stop here. It looks like there's some smoke coming off that right side of the race car. He may have to stop as we watch the field. Touring under caution behind the pace car. That is, of course, Dick Trickle in the 99 car, trying to keep those tires warm. Right in front of him, the 81 of Harold Fair, who has been holding him off effectively the whole race.
And into the pits comes Rick Craven in the 09 car. The crew going to go to work. We saw a lot of smoke up in the right front tire, and yes, that's the one they're going to change.
So Rick Craven kind of wins and loses. He's involved in the caution that slows everybody down, but he does get a chance to make that change on that right front tire that was cut. So he'll get back into the event, but he's going to fall way, way back, Steve.
And it's taken him a long time just to change one tire. This crew wasn't prepared for. Oh, and the air hose goes right over the windshield of the car, and there is that heavy impact wrench laying out there. Boy, that could be dangerous when it starts swinging around like that.
Well, don't forget, most of these fellas on this short track tour here don't do a lot of pit stops, and so you see some wild action like that. There is the cut in that tire, the right front tire on Ricky Craven's car, that put him into the pits and also caused that caution.
Well, that tire and wheel took a tremendous blow. You have to wonder, Brock, how the suspension is under that car. And even with a new tire and wheel, if it's going to handle right for Craven, it's got to be knocked out of the line to some degree.
Well, he's going to find out right away, because we're going to be back under green here at Nashville right after this. Stay with us for the first of 2 50-lap qualifiers.
You don't need to go to Athens, Greece to see the Parthenon. It's right in downtown Nashville, an exact replica. Well, actually, the Parthenon in Greece fell down about 2,000 years ago. This one went up in 1920, and you may remember it being featured in the movie Nashville, a Robert Altman film that I thought was just terrific. We're still under yellow here at Nashville Motor Raceway with Mark Martin and the number 2 Ford Thunderbird on the point.
Well, golly, Evans, I didn't know you were a film critic. In fact, you don't even look like Gene Shalit.
Well, I tell you, I thought your Cannonball Run should have won an Oscar. Six-pack, too, for that matter.
You are a terrific critic. Take it all back. As we go back to green here, Mark Martin jumps out into the lead. Boy, did he get a jump off that green flag, Steve. He's moved out well in front of Bobby Donner, but there we watch Trickle gnawing to get on the rear bumper of Harold Fair, that number 81, but he can't seem to get by him. There's the 36 car, Kenny Wallace, trying to move up. He's right behind Darrell Waltrip in that 17. But look at this, Davey Allison in the number 28 car challenging Kenny Wallace, who of course is Rusty's younger brother and also has a big future in racing. But right now he's got all he can handle with Davey Allison trying to get underneath him as they come down the front straightaway.
He doesn't seem to be able to put any distance on him, though. Davey's car handling very well down low, and he is just now pulling up on Darrell Waltrip in the number 17 car. And so far, Brock, the race's reliability is far greater than ours. Our camera has gone out in Dick Trickle's car, so is the darn radio.
Well, everybody else is running real good out there, though, and Trickle still holding on to that 4th spot in that cluster of cars. But look at this, Joey Shear challenging Trickle now. Shear in that orange 36 Camaro, right beside Dick Trickle as they go down the back straightaway. So Shear using that high line, and we saw Trickle use that earlier, and now we're seeing Kenny Wallace out there as well. The racetrack's starting to get a little rubber down on it, so that it's becoming a multi-groove racetrack. You can see right here, Shear way up high as he comes off turn 2.
And here's the race for the lead, the 2 Ford Thunderbirds, Mark Martin in the 2 car, and Bobby Donner in the 79 car, and you can see the interval right there. They have really moved out a number of car lengths.
Now look at Harold Fair. Harold's sitting right in the middle of the racetrack. Shear on the outside of him, Trickle on the inside, and Harold right in that middle groove. And he says, guys, if you want to get by me, Stevie, you're going to have to go either high or low, but I'm not going to move.
He is everywhere that the other two drivers want to go.
And that's what racing's all about. This Shear gets very loose. Coming off turn 4, almost lost it. A tricky part of the racetrack here as Joey Shear gathers it up and keeps on going, but he does fall back a little bit.
Yeah, it cost him a couple of positions, but that was some fine driving just to maintain control of that automobile. That was brilliant.
There is Mark Martin. There is Harold Fair. Right behind him is Dick Trickle, still challenging. But Mark Martin and Bobby Dowder have now moved well up front in this field, although Mark about 2 or 3 car lengths ahead. There you see the 2 leaders. Mark Martin from Batesville, Arkansas, a fine young driver who is, we understand, is going back into Winston Cup competition next year.
And the driver behind him, Bobby Dowder, certainly fields some fine-looking equipment, Brock. They're as about as professional a team as you'll find in any brand of stock car racing.
Right now, Steve, we've got ASA, American Speed Association drivers, really dominating this event right now. Mark Martin, 4-time champion in that series, and Bobby Dowder, one of the up-and-coming young stars. Right behind him, Harold Fair, a real veteran, and then Trickle and Joey Shear. So a bunch of guys from that kind of Midwestern racing organization doing well right here.
Hey, look at this terrific race. This is for 3rd position. Dick Trickle in the number 99 car that he calls Crystal, moving right up on the bumper of 81 Harold Fair. Trickle is just tired of running there, and he's going to just challenge Fair, have some fun with it, if nothing else.
Well, they both know that they're going to move into the Big 400, presuming they can finish like this, but it's a matter of pride and a few bucks as that number 99 driver, the man who has won, they say, more short track stock car races than anybody in history, Dick Trickle, trying to muscle his way past Harold Fair.
And the man who's won more money in American racing than any other driver is in a battle there for the 5th position. He's trying to defend his 5th spot in the 17 car, of course. Darrell Waltrip, Franklin, Tennessee, who got his start on this very racetrack. Kenny Wallace in the yellow number 36, right behind Darrell.
I got a feeling, Steve, that Darrell is just feeling this race car out. As you said earlier, they had to make some last-second ride height adjustments on that race car, and it may not be just a perfect handler, but you can be sure that he and his crew will get that thing ready for next week's big event. Look at this. Trickle said, hey, Harold, paying attention up there, and he just gave him a little tap as they came down the back straightaway. And now he's trying to move low one more time down the front straight. Trickle is persistent, but look at Harold hold him up. What a good race between those 2 veterans.
He definitely got Harold's attention. He may do it again right here. Now, I don't believe they had any contact, but certainly Harold Fair now knows that Dick Trickle is not content right behind him. And look at Trickle on the high side.
High side, coming off turn number 4, and he will finally get by Harold. Harold probably moved a little bit low to defend that position and may not have been ready for Trickle. And you can see that Harold Fair was doing a good job holding him up, because now he's just burst past him and moved ahead.
And also, Kenny Wallace in 36 car is driven around 17 Darrell Waltrip, and that is Davey Allison on the inside getting around.
Right, Davey Allison in that brand new black and white 28 gets by Darrell Waltrip. Right behind Waltrip now is Joey Shear in that cluster of automobiles. And look at, now Fair is being challenged by both Kenny Wallace and Davey Allison. So Harold Fair has fallen back substantially after valiantly holding on to that 3rd spot. Oftentimes, that's a question of tires going away on you, Steve. He probably was driving the car so hard trying to hold off Trickle that he's maybe fried a right front tire, and that has affected the handling on that car. So Fair now falling back, having been passed by Darrell Waltrip and about to be passed by Joey Shear. So Harold Fair, doubtlessly the tires having gone away on that number 81 car, falls out of contention.
That's right, he went from 3rd to 6th in a big hurry. But for the 4th position, the yellow number 36, Kenny Wallace, and Davey Allison, the rookie from the NASCAR Wars, who has won a couple of big races on Super Speedway. They're having a nice fight for that 4th position.
Well, Davey Allison, as we said, has a massive future ahead of him in Winston Cup competition, but his dad, Bobby Allison, set him loose on short tracks like this for 4 or 5 years, and he is an extremely experienced driver in this kind of competition. So we'll see more of him both today and next week.
And here's the the fight for that 10th position, trying to get a good start at next weekend's 400. That is Steve Burgess in 10th in the orange car. Just behind him in the white 21 is Mike Rowe, and I guess you could call that in some ways the final transfer spot, as we might in sprint car racing in a heat race. But it is important to finish no worse than 11th, and Burgess right now in the 10th spot.
Right, Steve. So there's a lot at stake for these two guys because the big bucks are up for that 400 lapper that comes up next week. As we watch the race before, Kenny Wallace 36, Davey Allison right behind him, and Darrell Waltrip in that orange and white 17 car following up. There is Davey Allison got really loose coming off turn number 2. We talked about turn 2. It's where the banking makes a transition down to the flat part of the racetrack, and there's a lot of trouble potential there.
Harold Fair got behind, Darrell Waltrip got behind, and that little bobble slipped the 28 car, Davey Allison, clear back to 7th spot.
Right, he was challenging for 4th, so fortunately, though, Davey saved the race car because he was way out of shape, but got it gathered up, but it did cost him 3 spots.
And as you mentioned earlier, that is a new car. They maybe have not hit just the chassis tuning quite right, where the tires are taking more abuse than they normally would. It's hard to tell. Only the man inside that car truly knows.
There you see that place on the back straightaway. It used to be, as I said, a 36-degree banking. When they cut the banking down, they made a kind of a difficult transition there onto the flat part of the back straight, and that is a trouble spot here.
Well, having some trouble holding on to the 6th position is the driver of the 81 black machine, Harold Fair. Look at that. Davey Allison is right there in the black and white 28, falling in line now, but a serious threat in the orange car, the 36 machine. That is Joe Shear. All of that is the battle for 6th position. Some great action here in Nashville. We'll be right back.
Along with Steve Evans, we're back at the Nashville Motor Raceway watching the first of 2 50-lap qualifiers unfold here. 10 laps left, and Mark Martin, Batesville, Arkansas, has dominated this event, Steve. Took the lead from the opening green flag and has not given it up since.
Well, the real race is for 6th position still. 81 Harold Fair in the black car, 28 Davey Allison, the black and white car. Allison from Hueytown, Alabama. He seems to be able to pull up right on his bumper here in this part of the raceway, but then loses it on the front straight.
Well, Harold's doing exactly to Davey Allison what he did to Dick Trickle. He just kind of uses the whole racetrack to keep him back there. Harold, a canny old veteran of this kind of racing, I guess he kind of views, if you want to pass him, you do it the old-fashioned way. You work for it.
That's right, and every time Davey Allison thinks he's going to do it high, look, see, there's Harold. Harold kind of changes neighborhoods from inside to outside, but who's to say Harold is doing this on purpose, Brock? I really can't. He may just be driving his own race and trying to get around as quick as he can. Davey Allison now has got a little bit of fiberglass underneath him and loses it again.
Well, there he goes, trying to get underneath him. I think he'll make it stick this time. But, hey, that's what racing's all about. You don't give way to anybody. And I think every one of the guys in this race would do exactly the same thing. If you can hold somebody off, you do it.
Well, it's one thing if you're 2 seconds a lap slower and you're getting the move over flag from the start, but Harold Fair was not getting it.
No, absolutely not. If you're not a lap car, everything is fair out here. As we watch him come off turn number 2, that is Davey Allison. Remember, we saw him get really wobbly here a few laps earlier, but right now he's got it under control as he comes off turn number 4. There's Fair. Right behind him, Joey Shear in that 36 car.
And how about Dick Trickle here? He is moving up on the 2nd position driver, number 79, Bobby Dotter, the red and white car. Now he's got clear sailing between his Camaro and that Thunderbird. Let's see what Trickle can do here. A fine race car driver, as you know, and an animal behind the wheel. And
he sure likes to race. Never gets rattled out there. There's Mark Martin and that brown number 2 Thunderbird moving through some lap traffic, but he right now has what you could call almost insurmountable lead. Unless he gets into some really slow going here, there's no way that Bobby Dotter in that number 79 red and white Thunderbird is going to move in on him.
Well, here comes that slow going. Dotter's now, his progress has been impeded. That may allow Trickle in the number 99 car to narrow some of that gap. Yes, it has.
Now, Steve, that white number 21 car right in front of Dotter is Mike Rowe. He is in the 11th transfer spot. So he's working very hard in his own race. That means that he's not going to just move out of the way to let Dotter by.
Well, if Trickle 1 second, you better move fast because there's only a couple of laps to go. Trickle in the Camaro still trying to pick up the red and white Thunderbird of Bobby Dotter, car number 79.
Well, he's moved right in on him. And as they come down the front straightaway, the white flag is out. 1 lap left. He has a half a mile left, Trickle does, to get by Bobby Dotter.
Well, they're playing boxcars with him here now, Brock. Not intentionally, but Bobby Dotter has got some other cars there he can use to fill up that racetrack. And Trickle, he's going to go for it, though.
Here they come, down off turn number 4. There's your winner, Mark Martin, taking the checkered flag. Right behind him, Dotter, and on his bumper, the 99 car of Dick Trickle in 3rd spot.
Well, just a perfect performance by Mark Martin in that number 2 car. He had qualified 3rd quickest yesterday, started up front and never really looked back. The Thunderbird certainly had a handle on this race this afternoon. And he will be well rewarded, not only in terms of the prize money, but also that will ensure him a 2nd row start in the Big 400 next week, just behind Butch Miller and Mike Alexander. Okay, with Martin still on the cool-down lap, let me see if I can contact him on a radio.
Mark, this is Steve Evans, Diamond P. A tremendous drive. The Ford just humming around this racetrack. Was it as easy as it looked?
We didn't have Mike Alexander, the pole setter, in that race. We don't have Butch Miller in there. Those are the 2 guys to beat.
Looking forward to it. Thank you. Congratulations again.
So, a little conversation with Mark Martin. We appreciate these drivers anytime they take the time to talk with us on the radio. There is the 17 car of Darrell Waltrip coming to a stop for his crew. And here's how they finished. Mark Martin, the 2 car, won it, of course. Another Ford with Bobby Dotter, followed by the Camaro Trickle, then Kenny Wallace, Darrell Waltrip. Nailing down 6th is Davey Allison, followed by Harold Perrin 7th, and Joe Shear, Dave Jackson. In the 10th position, Steve Burgess. All right, Brock's with the winner, Mark Martin.
No problem at all. It looked like the race car was hooked up, and you could handle Bobby Dotter pretty well, and otherwise you're just getting through traffic.
Well, like I said, we didn't have to race against Butch Miller and Mike Alexander, and they're going to be the guys to beat. And we've got our work cut out for us. We're not finished. And once again, I want to thank SAI, our sponsor, and all the people that have worked on the car.
Well, super job. Congratulations. Outstanding race.
Thank you.
And now let's go to Steve with Bobby Dotter, who ran so consistently to finish in 2nd spot.
Well, no one out there, including the winner, Mark Martin, worked any harder than the man in the 79 car, Bobby Dotter, but you just couldn't seem to make up that ground you needed.
Well, early in the race, the Miller American Ford was performing great, and I really felt we could run with Mark, if not outrun him. But then we had a tire start going down maybe about 15 laps from the end, and at the end I just had to hang on for 2nd.
You don't pit in a race like this for anything if you can stay on the racetrack.
No, you can never make up the ground in that short of a race.
But it proved one thing. The Fords, even though they're few in numbers, like this racetrack.
Yeah, they do. They really perform well on the bigger tracks. I feel that the Ford product will be up front in the 400.
Okay. Good luck then.
Thank you.
Brock's with 3rd.
Down here with Dick Trickle, who ran 3rd, but is obviously concerned with the right front corner of the race car. Is that where the problem was, Dick?
Well, the problem was black. How about 81 on it? Harold Perrin was trying to hold me back and Joe back, and he was running all over in front of us, and I didn't want to wreck in that race. I finally gave him a shot down the back straight to let him know that he better straighten up. But we need another quick yellow because I think we were a little stronger than the leaders, but he dragged us back too far, and we had too much to make up.
Could make up. What's the problem? A little chassis setup here problem?
No, we're just looking over the tires because that was a sprint race, and we run pretty hard trying to pass the 81 car and then trying to catch up to the leaders. And we're looking at the tire wear, and they're roughing real bad. So hopefully by Sunday, this track will cure a little bit, and it'll be easier on tires. But right now, if you look right here, you'll see a lot of graining on a tire.
Yeah, okay. And so that's a little setup problem that you can probably correct, huh?
Oh, yeah, I don't think it's anything to set up. I think it's the track, you know. Track is still pretty green, and we run a pretty hard 50 laps.
Right. Well, it could have run harder if 81 hadn't been away. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we've been right on the leaders and could have made a race out of it, but he just dragged us back, and, you know, he chopped me off a couple times, and I got out of there because we got a race next week, so I figured there ain't no way we're going to want to wreck this car right now.
Well, congratulations on a good, strong 3rd anyway. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Well, if you're ever in a short track stock car race and you see the number 99 car and Dick Trickle in your mirror, well, you better have a lot of horsepower or you better move over. We'll be back to Nashville.
One of the great educational institutions in the nation is located right here in Nashville. Vanderbilt University, which was endowed back in the 19th century by the railroad baron Cornelius Vanderbilt. And that is the administrative building on this beautiful campus.
And I'm sure in the grandstands today here at Nashville Motor Raceway, we've got some undergraduates from Vanderbilt. They could jog over here. It's only just a few miles away. And out on the grid, well, they're getting ready for the second of our 50-lap Stock Car Connection qualifiers. But before we see that race, let's take a look at another 50-lapper that happened earlier today.
Right, Steve. These are the local stars here. This racetrack is run every weekend, and these guys came out here to put on a special show. These are the local heroes, and I'll tell you what, there's some fine race cars and some fine drivers that were in this field.
That's right. The race was called the Miller 50, and not only the local stars, but there's some travelers as well who had to adapt to the local rules. And these are what they call late model stock cars.
Right. These guys are like so many campaigners around the United States. They run on their local track every weekend. And I'll tell you what, remember now, a man by the name of Darrell Waltrip came out of this exact same situation a few years ago, as did Sterling Marlin, and earlier than that, his dad, Cuckoo Marlin, all of whom were stars on the Nashville surface in years past. Now, at first glance, these cars look exactly like the Stock Car Connection short track machines, but they're quite a bit different, and Steve had a look at one.
The late model stocks, as they're called, we'll see in today's Miller 50, are really more closely related to a NASCAR style of stock car than the machines of the Stock Car Connection. This is the number 16 Buick LeSabre of track champion Bobby Hamilton. Now, it weighs in at 3,100 pounds. It's heavier because an all-steel body is required. But make no mistake about it, this is a custom-crafted race car, with one exception. They have to use the production front frame horns and production style suspension. No coilover adjustable shocks allowed. Now, the engines are also restricted to 9-to-1 compression, but here, instead of a 4-barrel, they are limited to a 2-barrel carburetor, so they don't make quite the horsepower. But they're very durable race cars, very exciting, and a great place to get experience if you want to be a pro in this business.
Well, we'll flat guarantee you are going to see some excitement. These guys did a super job as the green flag flew, Steve.
That's right. It was number 38, Chad Chapin, who got into turn 1 first, followed by number 15, Darrell Tate. And the car that I had a look at earlier, the 16 machine of already crown track champion Bobby Hamilton.
That is that blue and black car back there in the 3rd spot. But as they came off turn number 4, Steve, it was Darrell Sage who took the lead in that red and white automobile.
Well, Brock, you remember in the days when you wouldn't dare show up at any racetrack with a green race car? Well, Chad Chapin isn't superstitious, but maybe he should be, because his number 38 blew up early.
Tough break for Chad Chapin. He was out early. Now, this was the race for 7. That is Jim Swatsky, Newt Moore, and Jimmy Kitchens in the X20, who gets sideways coming off turn number 2 and into the inner fence, Steve.
Well, he came precariously close to getting over that wall. Let's take a look one more time. Watch the 3rd car in your picture. That is the X20 car of Jimmy Kitchens. Kitchens getting up high, and for some reason got it sideways and comes down hard into the wall.
Well, Steve, remember we talked about that bump off turn number 2, and I think that's what victimized Kitchens, as he hit the inner wall really hard, and as you say, almost jumped over the wall. That's what 2 of our Diamond P cameramen there had a really close view of that one. And we found out it was a flat tire that caused the crash.
Tires are always hard to tell which one is going flat. That's a difficult thing for a driver to call sometimes.
Well, usually if it's the rear tire of the car gets loose, and if it's the front, the car don't turn. But we had to add 320 pounds of lead to this car to get it to run this race, to make it legal to Nashville rules, and it played its part on the car. It just never has worked right since we've been here with it. So
well, let's hope you can get it repaired and back in action pretty soon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You bet, Jimmy.
So that extra weight probably added to the problems of Jimmy Kitchens, as we saw his car loaded up and finished for the day. Now, this was the race for 6 spots, Steve. Mark Smith, Newt Moore, Ricky Cruz, and Chip Mullinax get into it down the front straightaway.
Well, Brock, it was one of those chain reaction accidents that happen so often in short track stock car racing. In fact, let's take another look and you can see exactly where the trouble came from. The red 44 car, that's Mark Smith. Now, he gets hit from behind by 84 Newt Moore. That sends Smith sideways. He does a good job of trying to control the car, but can't quite get it gathered up. 84 Newt Moore goes over to contact the wall. And of the 3 cars involved in this shunt, it was only Newt Moore who could not restart.
Well, Newt Moore ended up against the tire wall down in turn number 1. Newt, what happened? Looked pretty wild down there.
Well, Mark Smith, 44, he was pushing coming out of the corners, and I done committed to go under him, and I come under him, and he got down. We got into each other, and I tried to get him off of me, and I got turned into the fence. So that's just bad luck.
I tell you what, it's hard getting to the halfway point in this thing. It's just been yellows all the way. Is this unusual for this class of cars?
No, usually the racing's real close, and no, not really. We don't have a lot of wrecks, but I guess you're in racing, all the out-of-town cars are here, so everybody's trying, you know, real hard to do real good. So
yeah.
it just.
Well, the racetrack's got some oil down on it too.
Yeah, racetrack's crazy all the way around. The car's dropping oil everywhere, and it stay dry everywhere. It's just everybody's got to try to keep their head cool, and it just. I guess I tried to go on him a little too soon. Could be my fault, you know.
Well, with the wreckers just about out of fuel, the last lap flag finally flew.
And it was the track champion, Bobby Hamilton, in that beautiful number 16 car, the car that Steve had a look at earlier, that went on to the victory and picked himself up over $1,000. A good afternoon's work for Bobby Hamilton in a race car perfectly set up for this track. So it was a local boy making good here at Nashville as he took the checkered flag in this special event.
You've got the money, you've got the big trophy. I'm going to give you another award for just staying out of trouble out there.
Well, it was rough. It was about the roughest one I've seen. It seemed like every 3 laps there was a caution.
Well, they had the gloves off today.
They sure did.
Again, congratulations. Great job. Okay, let's go to Brock.
All right, Steve, a good show by the local boys here as Bobby Hamilton and his crew celebrate. But right now, we're going to go back to the second 50-lap qualifier here at Nashville. They're lined up on the grid, ready to go. We'll be back with the start.
You'll find one of Nashville's most ambitious urban renewal programs on 2nd Avenue, which was once called Market Street. And here every year they hold the Market Street Festival, and the buildings along it have been renovated with stores in the first story and apartments in the second. It's just a beautiful part of town you might want to visit the next time you come to Music City.
Well, the man in this car, this 52 Camaro, is planning on a visit to Victory Lane here in this 50-lapper coming up. That is Butch Miller, and he's got a story to tell. Earlier, Steve was with him.
Butch Miller qualified number 2, second only to Mike Alexander. And the top 2 qualifiers, as you know, Butch, can bypass these qualifying heat races today and go directly to next week's race. But you intend to run. Why is that?
Well, you know, I'm not Mike Alexander. I haven't got a million laps here, you know. He knows what's going to happen 10, 15, 25, 50, 100 laps down the road. I don't know. And I need that 50 laps. And I think that the 50 laps on the car and me and seeing what's gonna happen, whether the car's gonna loosen up, tighten up, go faster, slower, you know, for next week's race, I'm gonna be all set.
Well, the man has won all 3 Stock Car Connection races, prepping himself one more time. This is the car of Rusty Wallace, the number 27 Pontiac. What a young star he is. Earlier, Steve talked with him about the days on the short tracks.
When Rusty Wallace was the king of ASA racing, his only help was his little brother, Kenny. Well, now he returns to an ASA race, and guess who his car owner is? Kenny. Interesting role reversal.
It sure has been. You know, Kenny's been a very instrumental part in my career as far as racing on the short tracks and getting up to Winston Cup where I am right now. And I never had it in my head that Kenny wanted to be a race driver. I thought he just wanted to be on the crew, and I always thought he wanted to be a crew chief. Well, he worked down in Charlotte a little bit at some of the Winston Cup shops. Then he came back to say, hey, I want to drive. And he had a bunch of people behind him, John Childs, Don Kern, Prototype Engineering, Baker Engineering, a bunch of them. They got behind Kenny and gave him his chance to do it. And now he's trying to follow my footsteps and do what I'm doing, and I'm trying to help him out all I can because he helped me a lot.
Well, we saw Kenny finish 4th in that first qualifier, so let's see how his brother can do.
You know, if it's Sunday and your name is Bobby Allison, you race. You race something. On asphalt, dirt, it really doesn't matter. Brock talked to the gentleman earlier.
I guess over the years, Bobby Allison has built race cars for just about every stock car formula as there is in the world. What about this Stock Car Connection rules, Bobby? Is there anything significantly different about these?
Well, the major thing that they've done is they've gone back to the perimeter frame, which simply means it's more like a conventional car. Over the years, the cars had gone more and more to offset cars where the left side weight was emphasized by the roll bars being moved over and the right frame rail being moved over and all that. And now they've gone back to the the frame going around the right side like in a normal automobile, and of course the roll cage matching that. And then what they've done is they've gotten the cars lighter by better design of the roll cage and better design of the frame and all, so that we can ballast the cars to the left. And of course this car has a bunch of new innovations where the front end completely detaches from the car for an engine swap like we're doing this morning. And you know, it makes it easy to work on the little things. Yesterday when we wanted to block the grill for qualifying, we simply set the nose sheet metal off and did the block work on it and put it back on the car, where it usually would take a lot longer.
Bobby not only loves to drive them, he loves to build them.
And starting beside Bobby in this beautiful number 98 automobile is another veteran of the Southern Stock Car Wars, Jody Ridley from Chatsworth, Georgia.
This is the beautiful number 98 Ford Thunderbird of Jody Ridley. And the Thunderbirds are far outnumbered by the GM products, but Jody, how does the Bird like this racetrack?
Well, you know, the birds have been pretty competitive. It don't really matter if it's a GM or a T-Bird. You know, if it's a good car, it's going to run good. So, you know, I think the birds have got a good chance. You know, and there's one up front and a couple of three in the top 5. So, you know, we ain't too bad.
We know you have the experience. Tell us what you're doing here on the right front wheel.
Well, we're setting the capturing camera on it. You know, putting a little, what they call a lead off into the corner. This thing's got power steering on it. I hadn't been running it, and we've been kind of searching for the right combination. So we're making a last-minute change here and hope it's right.
I hope you found it too.
Okay. Thank you.
So the great veteran Jody Ridley straps himself in, as he has so many times in his long and illustrious career. That automobile, that 84 Buick, is driven by a man they call the Bluebird. That's Bob Seneker, Dorr, Michigan, who's won more ASA races, 58, than any other man in racing. On the outside of Seneker, a young man who is the current American-Canadian Tour champion, Robbie Crouch, an affable, talented driver, transplanted Floridian, now living in Vermont.
Well, inside of row number 4, representing All-Pro, and in fact, a former All-Pro champion, is Steve Grissom in the number 31 Chevrolet out of Gadsden, Alabama. Now, Steve Grissom not only will have his hands full on the racetrack, we'll be able to see every move he makes, because his Camaro is fitted with our onboard camera for this final qualifying race. Now, outside of row number 4 is Dave Green. Dave is in a Buick automobile. He is from Madison, Tennessee, and this is a fine qualifying effort for him to start outside of row number 4.
On the outside of row 5 is ASA star Ted Musgrave, who's run second behind Butch Miller in all 3 Stock Car Connection races.
What's her name, also known as the 97 car driven by Ted Musgrave, is getting some suspension attention right now. And Ted, how would you set up the car for a sprint race like today as opposed to the 400 lapper next weekend?
Well, right now we're just setting up the Coors Baker Buick for 400 lapper to see how it is going to run in that race. Today will just more or less be a test to see if it'll hold up.
Okay, so you don't really set it up tighter or looser trying to win this race. You're really getting some track time for next weekend?
Yeah, we're not really setting it up any tighter or looser. We're hoping that the speed of the car will remain the same throughout the whole race. And that's the key to this 400 lapper, I believe, is just remain fast.
Gentlemen, let's go racing!
Oh, there you heard it. The PA system called for the field to start their engines. So we're about to get underway for 50 laps, roughly 30 miles on this 0.6 of a mile high bank speedway at Nashville.
And Butch Miller on the pole in the 52 car is in an ideal situation. Because of his fine qualifying effort, he cannot be kept off of the front row for the 400 next weekend. But every other driver in this race is fighting to stay in the next 11 to get the prime spots for a very rich race coming up in just a week.
So Bobby Ellis and Jody Ridley, 2 NASCAR stars back there, starting side by side. A whole bunch of fine race drivers. Ted Musgrave there, we talked to him earlier. Bobby Hamilton, we saw him win that little local short track event a few minutes ago.
Well, just like the earlier qualifier, we have got race car drivers from all over the United States, 3 different sanctioning bodies, including a few defectors from NASCAR for the weekend. 25 cars in all will start in this 50-lapper. And the same rules apply. The yellow flags, if there are any, and I mentioned there will be, do not count towards that total count of 50. Back in row number 9 is the biggest name in Canadian short track stock car racing, Claude Leclerc. He's traveled all the way from Montreal, Quebec. Earlier, Brock talked with him.
How is the Speedway? It's fast, quite high banked. Are you used to this kind of track from where you race normally?
No, it's a completely different. Here is a high bank, and we race all the time on a flat track or just a little bit bank. But it's a lots of difference here. But it's a nice track, and I like the track.
So it'll take a little time today to get the car sorted out and for you to feel comfortable.
Yes, I need a couple laps, and I would like come on the first place during the heat, but especially it's very important, and come back with the car and all on the same piece.
Well, good. Well, we certainly hope that works for you, and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Claude used to apologize for what he calls his broken English until he heard Yates and I try to order in a French restaurant in Montreal. He hasn't done it since that day. Here's the field circulating around. Our onboard camera is fired up in the number 31 car of Steve Grissom from Gadsden, Alabama. And I know that young man is going to bring us some great pictures. We'll be back with the start right after this.
Brock Yates along with Steve Evans back at the Nashville Motor Raceway, getting ready for the second of two 50-lap qualifiers here. As Butch Miller, the man who has dominated the stock car connection so far this year, gets ready to go as we peek through the windshield of Steve Grissom, and a green is out, Steve.
Indeed, the green is out. Let's watch Miller on the inside, the 52 car. Will he lead? Yes, he will lead into turn number 1. Here is the in-car, Steve Grissom. He is currently in the 8th position. Just in front of him is the Bluebird, number 84, Bob Seneker, and 16, David Green.
Down the back straightaway and into turns 3 and 4. Miller leads the field off. So the ASA star being hounded by 3 NASCAR stars. That is Rusty Wallace, number 22, Bobby Allison, and 98, Jody Ridley back there in the 4th spot.
And our in-car driver, Steve Grissom, he is in the 8th position. He is trying to get around the high side on Seneker, and I believe he pulled that off.
There he is in that red and white number 31 car, going by on the outside, taking Bob Seneker. So Steve Grissom moves up, an all-pro champion, an excellent young driver from down Alabama way, moves down that back straightaway. There's Seneker in the blue 84 car. Right behind him, that is the gray and white 97 of Ted Musgrave, who challenges Seneker now as they come off turn 4 and down the front straightaway.
Seneker and Musgrave are now running 8th and 9th respectively.
Now look at this. Miller has moved out to a big lead as Bobby Allison in that brand new automobile out of the Ray Dillon shop, North Liberty, Indiana. A prototype car sits in that 3rd spot, Steve.
And just behind Allison is the bright blue Thunderbird. That's 98, Jody Ridley. And he is followed by 48, Robbie Crouch from way up in Vermont. David Green, the 16 car, 31, Steve Grissom.
And right behind Grissom is the 84 car of Seneker and Musgrave. There's the in-car look from the Steve Grissom automobile as he sweeps off turn number 4 and heads down that front straightaway. About 130 miles an hour here, Steve, as they get into turn number 1.
You know, Seneker might have been a bit surprised that this all-pro driver Grissom got around him as easily as he did. Seneker, now his tires warmed up. He's going after him. He wants him back.
Well, these guys have raced against each other on a number of occasions, so they're both experienced short track stars. There goes Grissom, right behind him Seneker, and Musgrave, the man who always seems to move up slowly and quietly in these races, as we said earlier, has finished second behind Butch Miller in all 3 Stock Car Connection events.
And here is that race for the 3rd spot. 22, Bobby Allison, the red and white car, and the unmistakable blue Thunderbird of number 98, Jody Ridley. 2 old warriors having a great time in that 3rd spot, and there's the battle for 5th. There is Robbie Crouch in the 48 car, followed by the number 16 car of David Green. What a job he has done.
Right, so those 2 guys going at it, north to south, as we watch Green try to poke underneath Robbie Crouch down the front straightaway and then tuck back into line as the racetrack continues to provide racing room in 2 or 3 grooves as we watch Grissom down the back straightaway. Saw that little bump as he came off turn number 2. Crouch and Green at it again. Crouch high off turn 4, gives Green a shot to get underneath him.
And Grissom is right there behind him.
There's Crouch, 16, that white car of Green. There's Grissom. He gets a driver's eye view of that battle between Crouch and Green right ahead of him. And right behind him, of course, is Bob Seneker.
You know, they're not just getting off the throttle rock as they go into these turns. In many cases, they're using quite a bit of brake, and especially if you're coming up on a slower car. You don't just coast up behind him. You race up behind him and jam on the brakes. So brakes very important on these race cars.
Well, good race between Crouch and Green, and boy, is Steve Grissom getting a good view of that. Of course, either one of those guys bobbled just a little bit, and Grissom will go by him in a wink. As we watch Crouch and Green, there goes Grissom right behind him down into turn number 1. Off turn 2, Crouch holding that high line, and Green just can't seem to get quite enough speed on him down the straightaways to get underneath. There they are, lapping a slower automobile. That's where the brakes are being used, when you have to set that race car up and get in a position. There goes Green, ducking in behind Robbie Crouch, down off turn 2, down the back straightaway. Just not quite enough speed on the part of Green to get by him. And it looks as if, Steve, that Grissom can't quite move in on him. He gets in a little bit as they get into those corners, but then those 2 race cars ahead of him seem to pull away and down the straight.
Now, Steve Grissom concentrating on trying to catch that 16 car, but also he's got to defend the turf he's already won, because Bob Seneca is right behind him, putting on a lot of pressure.
And right behind Seneca, of course, is Musgrave. So he's got 2 Chargers right behind him as we watch Steve Grissom come down the front straightaway. And again, Green holds his ground. And there, Bob Seneca dove underneath, and a spin by Musgrave. So Seneca got by Grissom, and then Musgrave, probably trying to get by him as well, spins off the racetrack. We've got a yellow. It doesn't look like there's been any damage to that 97 car, but it'll definitely slow the action down and will certainly hurt Musgrave's chances of moving up.
It'll look like Musgrave, as Seneca passed Musgrave, moved up behind 31 Grissom and tangled with the back end of Grissom's automobile. Grissom went a little bit sideways, but held on. Musgrave, not so. Around he went.
Well, Steve, now the pressure is on Ted Musgrave to qualify for the big 400 lapper. There he goes, sideways. Yes, he got a little overeager as Seneca moved in underneath Grissom, and then there was no place for Musgrave to go. Musgrave spins the race car, gets back underway, but boy, does he have some work, because remember, only 12 cars transfer to the big race.
Okay, Brock, let me see if we can't raise Steve Grissom on our 2-way radio.
Steve Grissom, this is Steve Evans, Diamond P Sports. Do you copy?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Steve, you had a little too good a seat for that incident. What happened up there?
I got a little high coming into 3 over here, and coming off 4, Bob Seneca got under me. And we was about dead even going down the front straightaway, and when we got to 1, it was time to get back in line, and I think I might have come down on 10 just a little bit.
I'll let you get back to action.
What a fine young sport Steve Grissom is. One of the rare occasions when you hear a race driver accept a little bit of blame for that problem. So Musgrave's got his work cut out for him. We'll see how it goes as Butch Miller continues to lead it under caution here at Nashville. We'll be back for the restart after this.
We're back at Nashville Motor Raceway, where the field continues to circle under yellow. Here's how it looks. Butch Miller still out front, as he has been from the beginning. Rusty Wallace in second, followed by Allison, Ridley, and Crouch. In fact, let's see if I can put in a collect call to Rusty Wallace.
Rusty Wallace, this is Steve Evans, Diamond P Sports. You have a copy?
Yeah, sure do. Go ahead.
Well, Rusty, you've got a chance to relax here. What's the track like? What's your car like? Tell me what it's like out there.
Well, Steve, the car's pretty good right now. It's on the loose side, and it seems like I've got to run higher on the racetrack to keep the rear wheels hooked up. Right now, I got to drive a defensive race. I got Bobby Allison all over my rear end, and Butch Miller's running good, and I'm caught right in the middle. So everything's cool right now, though.
Good to hear it, my friend. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, Steve. See you later.
Well, we'll be watching that number 27 race car as Butch Miller leads him down toward a green flag. Yes, we've got to restart, and it's Miller, Wallace, and Bobby Allison in the 22 car challenge right away, Steve.
Well, you heard Rusty say, I got Bobby Allison all over my rear end. Well, now he's got him all alongside him. But look at Wallace. He said that car likes to run high. Well, it's a good thing, because that's where he needed to be.
Yep, he can run high here at Nashville, although, as we said, in turn number 3, there's a big bump, but Rusty drove right over the top of it, just like Trickle did earlier, and didn't seem to bother him a bit. There is Wallace, still holding on to that second spot. Right behind him, that beautiful red and white 22 car of Bobby Allison, and in the 4th spot, the 98 Thunderbird of Jody Ridley. So, Butch Miller off the pole, just like Mark Martin did in the first of these 50-lappers, currently holding on to about a 4-car length lead.
Well, you know, the always crafty and tough veteran Bobby Allison might have got on the pedal just a little sooner than Rusty Wallace did, because on the restart, that's when he pushed right up. In fact, did stick his bumper right under Rusty's spoiler. So it was Allison on the gas first, that's for sure. And here he comes again.
Well, there's 4 of them right almost under a blanket, being followed up by Jody there, who is back there in that 4 spot, but nobody's given much here. Butch can't seem to break away from Rusty Wallace in that 2nd spot, and right in back of Wallace is Bobby Allison. So there are 4 cars. Jody Ridley in that 4 spot falling back just a little bit, and we've got a spin. Out on turn number 2, Gary Bell, Houston, Texas, all-pro driver, has lost control. He will bring out the caution flag. Doesn't look like there's been a whole lot of damage, but it will definitely slow the field down and give Rusty Wallace and Bobby Allison another shot at Butch Miller. So, Steve, the field backs it down once again.
And, Brock, I have got Jody Ridley on the line.
Jody, we saw in the first of the twin qualifiers, the Fords appeared to really like this track. How is yours behaving?
Well, I got a little bit push right in the middle right now, but, you know, it's a new car and everything, and we're pretty satisfied with it. We got some more work to do before the 400, Sonny, but we'll get that little push out of right in the middle. I think we'll be pretty good shape.
Okay, thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, boy.
So as we have a little pause in the action here, let's take a look at the leaderboard as it stands. Butch Miller, Rusty Wallace, Bobby Allison, Jody Ridley, and Robbie Crouch round out the top 5 in this second 50-lapper. But we're going to go to green here, and this is by no means over. Remember, we heard Butch Miller say this is a testing session for him. He's trying to figure out what the tire setup will be for the big race.
Well, he has the luxury, of course, of being the only driver in this entire field that will go directly to the 400. And look at Miller. It is Miller. Wallace going up high. I don't know if that was intentional or not. Down lower is 22, Bobby Allison and Jody Ridley.
Well, down into turn number 3 they go as we watch Steve Grissom get a look at Bob Seneker just ahead of him down the front straightaway. Steve Grissom working hard all day, but I don't think his car is handling quite the way he'd like it to be. Notice he's staying down on the low groove, but the faster cars seem to be able to run up high. And look at this, Allison challenges again on the 27 car, Rusty Wallace.
Well, Wallace so far is able to hold him up, and Wallace so far also is able to maintain pretty close contact with Butch Miller in that 52 car. Miller is not running away. Here comes Allison down low again and ready to strike right behind Bobby. If he makes it work, is Jody Ridley. Look at Allison, just tuck a fender in there. Well, you know, Wallace can feel him if he can't see him.
Well, Rusty has little choice but to hang up high because he said the race car just doesn't work down low, but it seems as if Allison's number 22 works just fine in that low groove, and it appears to be a very, very difficult chore that Rusty Wallace has got to keep him at bay.
And a 2-car battle like we're seeing here between Allison and Rusty Wallace really requires total concentration, doesn't it, Brock? And look at Allison move down there, kind of look over and say, "Hi, Rusty, here I am. Don't make a mistake."
Well, there is that, what a veteran. I mean, Bobby Allison, oh, they bounced off. He's got a little bent, a little metal there as Allison continues to just kind of elbow his way closer and closer. It's almost an inevitable thing right now that Allison is going to slide Rusty Wallace out of the way to take over that 2nd spot. Rusty moving in on, look at this. Now Allison is dead even as they go down the back straightaway. And in the meantime, Steve, they moved up a little bit on Butch Miller. Butch has got to be looking at those 2 guys in his rearview mirror and saying, wow, if I make one little bobble, I'm out of this thing.
And here is Steve Grissom's view with their in-car camera in the 31 machine, and he can see what's going on up front there as well. He's got a pretty good seat for this. But we'll be back for some more of this terrific action right after these words. Stay with us.
Back in Nashville, where 2 position changes have happened in the top 5. Bobby Allison has gotten by Rusty Wallace for 2nd, and Bob Seneker has displaced Robbie Crouch for 5th.
And of course, we want to thank Steve Grissom for doing a fine job carrying our onboard camera. The pictures it has given us of those battles up front have just been terrific. And of course, when we saw the camera move, we knew that Grissom had been tagged earlier from behind by Ted Musgrave. So all in all, the onboard camera is just a great highlight today in this race.
Well, you know, Steve, Bobby Allison has really broken away from Rusty Wallace and is really moving in on Butch Bush Miller. Rusty, I would imagine, has begun to experience some tire problems because he has faltered substantially, and now he has his work cut out to hold off Jody Ridley and Bob Seneker. So I would imagine Rusty's experiencing some handling problems, otherwise he wouldn't be this far back.
Well, number 84, Bob Seneker, is a man on the move right now. He is down low under Jody Ridley. Typical Seneker strategy. In any race, no matter what the length, it'll be mid to late race before he really shows everything he has. Seneker on the inside, he is under Ridley.
And he's now beginning to challenge Rusty Wallace for that third spot. So Seneker, with a car that probably has not only better brakes but better tires, is beginning to move ahead of both of these automobiles. And don't forget, Steve, have been battling each other for the whole race.
Well, what you said about tires, Brock, I absolutely concur with. Rusty Wallace told us his car was not hamming very well. That's hard on tires. Plus, he's been fighting all day long and trying to catch Butch Miller. Equally hard on tires. I agree with Seneca right now. That's the difference. The rubber on all four corners of that car.
Right. There is the challenge by Bobby Allison in the 22 car for the lead. Butch Miller still holds it off. You know, a lot of folks think that maybe it's just a driver that kind of stands on the gas like a Seneca drives by those two guys. Here, Rusty Wallace and Jody Ridley's cars are obviously not working as well as they did in the early stages of the race. Seneca laid back, as you said. Now his race car is better hooked up and better able to run these corners, and that's the difference in the way those two or three cars are working in these later stages.
You know, we've talked about Butch Miller's domination of this series since the very beginning. Well, he knew when he came to Nashville that he was going to be in tough. 2 laps to go. Can Bobby Allison get around Butch Miller with just a lap and a half now to go?
Well, they're running into a slower automobile that they've got to get by. Butch Miller goes on the high side. Allison follows him high as they come off turn number 4 to complete the next to last lap. There's the white flag. This is the final 0.6 of a mile here at Nashville, and Allison drives low off turn number 2 and put a move on Miller. It doesn't work, though. He slips back a little bit as they head into the final 2 corners.
Well, this is really not a track that's fast enough to draft on, and that's how so many times in his career Bobby Allison has won in the last lap, but not today. It is Butch Miller winning the second and final qualifier for the Miller All-American 400. Butch Miller in a Camaro pulls off Bobby Allison in his new Buick. A great contest. We'll be back to talk to the winner.
So Butch Miller wins it from the pole in the second 50-lap qualifier for the big Miller 400. Jody Ridley rounds out the top 5. David Green will also transfer to the big race, as will Tom Jones, who finished 11th. And now, let's go to Steve with the winner, Butch Miller.
Coming out of the 52 car is the winner, Butch Miller. But Butch, I'll tell you, if this race had been a couple of laps longer, we might not be talking. Bobby Allison was right on your bumper.
Bobby was fast, and I guess we learned a lot from this race because we are out of control out there. You know, the car was just, it was good for maybe 10, 15 laps, and then we were lost. We got to go do some homework.
You know, you said you ran this race to continue your education for the big race next week, and apparently you didn't get the master's degree you'd hoped for.
No, but we got the results we'd hoped for. I mean, we finished in front, but hopefully we learned a lot for next week.
Okay, thank you, Butch Miller. Great job. Let's go to Brock with the second place finisher, and what a drive he put on.
Well, Steve, Bobby Allison was all over Butch's rear bumper for the last couple of laps. If we had a couple of more, could you have done it?
Well, I don't know. Butch was losing a lot of oil, and it was all over the windshield and all over the track, too. It was pretty slick out there. But the car really handled good and ran good. I was happy with it, and by and by we would have got him. It would have took more than a couple laps, probably.
Well, I'm sure you're set up for the big one next weekend. This 400-lapper will make a big, big difference in terms of strategy over a few 50-lappers today.
Well, really, they're good races for this particular event because they do let us get the cars out there under actual conditions and adjust on them if we need to. And I think the crowd really enjoyed the events today, and it was a good run.
And for a brand new, fresh number 22, you got to be happy.
Yeah, I am. This Miller American Buick sure did run good all day, being a brand new car. And as you saw this morning, we changed engines. Carl Wegner had built us a couple of different engines, and we changed engines this morning, and it looked like it ran pretty good.
Well, congratulations, Bobby. Super job as always.
Thank you.
Steve?
Well, the real charge as far as this race was concerned came from you, Bob Seneca. It looked like something clicked all of a sudden. The car just took off.
Well, we made some changes before the 50 lap or something we didn't get a chance to do in practice, and it took me a few laps to settle down and get used to what we had done to the car, and after that it worked pretty good.
Well, everybody really seemed to have the opinion, of course there's some money and some points, but the big race next weekend is really what you're all hunting for.
That's what it's after, and this 50 lapper was a good prelim to get our cars tested and test tires and just get the feel of the place again.
And a heck of a good race first through fourth, really.
Not too bad, thanks.
Not bad at all. Bob Seneca, what a nice drive. Moved up to the field quickly. Okay, Brock?
Well, Steve, you're going to see that big Miller All-American 400 right here next week. See you then.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashions. Style Auto, the champion's choice for the style of your life. The American Sports Cavalcade is a presentation of Diamond P Sports.